This is our monthly speaker series where we have people either within the club or outside the club to come to present some cool adventures or anything sort of related to outdoor recreation. So this is our second event for the series. So today, as you know, we're going to talk about crag development. Hopefully, most of you have got a chance to actually climb at the grotto, but here we have the crew here, and they're going to talk about the behind-the-scenes stories of grotto. So without further ado, I will pass on to Shannon. Maybe you can introduce the crew with the rest of them. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Shannon. Unfortunately, our whole crew isn't here, but we have 4 of us out of the 6 here. We spent a lot of time on this crag. We called it the Grotto. So we're gonna kind of talk about behind the scenes, what we did to kind of clean up this area, and yeah, just go through the process. Maybe we'll just introduce ourselves as we talk our part. So I'll start with a little timeline. Can everyone see that? So I'll go through the timeline here and then we'll break it down into different sections. So this all kind of started September 2022. We had a developer's social, like little dinner at House on Brew Pub. And then from there we gathered interested folks into a group chat. We did a site visit. We did a bunch of cleaning up over about a year. Yeah, that's about a year. And then we did our first ascent, a soft opening last September. And we re-scrubbed it after the winter season. It actually didn't take that much work, which was nice. And then now the token's released and everyone can go climb it. So maybe I'll pass it on to Scott, if you're ready, to talk about that first bit there of what happened to get it all started.
Yeah, so developer dinner. So what was going on there is we sort of that from the club side, the idea was let's try to create a new crag, let's try to open up some new climbing territory for the community. But that's kind of a skill set that, you know, either you do it regularly or you don't have it. Either you've been developing or you know nothing about developing, right? There's not a lot of like great information online about like how to do this well and safely and sustainably. So we decided to invite some of the local developers from around town to come out for a dinner. And at the same table, there is going to be some aspiring developers. So we're kind of connecting like the experts that have the wisdom and they're going to be able to pass it off to the aspiring developers. So a lot of it was just like give, you know, these guys the table, let them, you know, say whatever it is they think is pertinent for new developers to be aware of. And then we could sort of like talk a bit about the project and hopefully drum up support from the aspiring developers. It's kind of my hope that the like experienced developers would be like, yeah, so I've got this crag. It's a 5-star crag, 4-star crag, but it's just like truckloads of labor. The labor to stars ratio, good stars, too much labor, I can't deal with this. And it's like, oh, well, we actually got shitloads of labor and we don't know anything better, so give me your crag. So, you know, that was pretty brilliant in theory. Ultimately,
they didn't offer up their
They offered up. They offered up. It was all just about like bolting and I don't know, some etiquette stuff. Actually,
Which was very valuable.
it was super valuable. Getting back to the dinner, there was also a component of like somebody get these people a beer, and so we were able to do that. So club fronted the bill for the table at High Sound. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Cool. I think that's it for developer dinner. Questions about developer dinner?
What would a crag developer usually eat or drink?
I was curious on what question
beers, no French fries. It was really weird. I don't know if these guys are
That's disappointing. I thought it would be more.
What information did you see most valuable other than that little insight about permissiveness? Like maybe some technical stuff, like
little bit of technical stuff. So it was kind of like some FYI stuff, like as rock climbers, we've all got dynamic rope, but we don't necessarily have static rope. So if you're using dynamic rope, you might be inclined to set it up as a fixed line and jug from the bottom to get to whatever it is you're going to. And for example, it's like you don't really encounter this fault with your dynamic line if you're only using it for rock climbing. But if you've got like a little small abrasive edge, and each cycle of jug, it just pulls on that, and it's like I supervise, like I review, I look at basically the sheath of my rope after every climb by virtue of laying my buddy or whatever it is. But if you're jugging a dynamic line, you might not see that for however long it takes you to clean it. Many days, and there's so many jugs.
10, 20 years ago.
Pardon?
Someone died jugging it better than that after 10, 20 years ago.
I'm sure someone's died more recent than that.
Very likely, yes.
Apparently, the spirit of Squamish had a pretty wicked core shot in the fixed lines. And so Aaron Christensen was jugging his line. He's like, all right, well, it's been a long time since I've been at the top, because you start at the top and work your way down. So it's like, it's been whatever his number of days and however many jugs. And then he gets to the top. He's like, holy fuck, I've been putting my life on shoelace for how long? Oh my god.
We had a rope set up.
Don't tell me about this.
No, outside club. Outside club.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Go on.
I read other ropes besides the club shows. Yeah, we had a rope set up. Does anyone know? Does anyone know? Squamish buttress. We put up a 2-pitch next to community service. Anyway, we had a fixed line put in, dynamic, but it went over the edge of the roof. And it was fine because we weren't very active on that rope, but people had eyes on that rope and then used it as a bail option when Squamish buttress was getting too busy that day. So people were just sending down over this rope day after day, like to bail out. So when we went back to do some work, even from the ground, you could look up and go, something's wrong. So when we hiked up around, like we had a core shot, because people were just wrapping down. And like, of course, from wrapping on a single fixed line, you're getting that same kind of motion. So we didn't get injured, nor did anyone else, but it could have taken one more person deciding to wrap down that line, and something could have happened. So,
Dude.
Broke it.
I know, I'll hook you up with some fixed, some static line. We're dynamic lines now.
Yeah, Chris Wild also brought a lot of his gear that he uses. Just kind of give people just a set of eyes on just like what scrubbing brushes look like and like the types of scrubbing brushes he uses, or he has fashioned like this neat little seat for being able to like get out of his harness if he's going to be sitting there and hyperfixating on crystals for an hour, because that's a lot of what that job is. So it was just kind of neat just to see like his little kit. Right? There was nothing that special necessarily in there, but he had an ice axe for cleaning out cracks, just an old battered ice axe. If you wanted to get into development, he had many extra gree-grees because dirty ropes going through a gree-gree burns out your gree-gree as much as it burns out your ropes. So there's like a lot of these like little things where he was like through trial and error of just doing the wrong thing over the years, being like, oh, I've got a better solution for that. It's like for a lot of years I was using a nut tool to clean out cracks because that was what I had at the time, and I was like, oh, this is super convenient. And then Chris comes along and goes, check out this ice axe. And I was like, I don't know how long it would have taken to get there, right? But now it's like, okay, just get something better because my knuckles were not loving it. And so it was a lot of just like little things, like we should have made a list because it was just like these kind of like nuances that you wouldn't necessarily figure out on your first day because you don't know what you don't know.
Might be a topic that you got planned for later, but is there, like, did these people talk a lot about the philosophy of bolting or approaching crack development? Or is it more for something like a multi-pitch, something like the apron way that really comes to play? Yeah.
Retro bolting?
Or just like the philosophy of just bolting, like,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
sort of,
or
whatever the like sort of ethos is or the etiquette is around like permanent versus non-permanent pro versus like safe pro versus like
even just the amount of
The distances.
forest and rock you're willing to excavate is often up for debate. You're getting into different. We could sit here for 3 hours and have that conversation with developers about what is and isn't ethical. And I've learned in the last couple of years that they all have conflicting opinions, because that's all it is. All of there's no standard rule for what you can and can't do. So everyone just sort of makes up their own rules, and that just is bound by what they perceive to be acceptable. Whether it's the number of bolts that goes into something, or whether or not they're using an old staple or one bolt for an anchor because they're just cheap and want to save money, or that tree should just go because it just makes my life easier even if it doesn't impact what I'm doing. So like everyone kind of has their own opinions. Roundup is my best friend, you know, it's not mine. Robin's. But yeah, it's just like they kind of just make it up as they go. And whatever like their own morality suits. And then yeah, like they'll like a lot of them just have a difference of opinions. It's an honest struggle, at least even for myself, being like, what does the community need? What will these actions play into like the future of using this space? I think probably outside of just the manual labor of developing, that's probably the hardest thing. It's just like knowing what the right thing to do is. And the reality is well, there is no right answer because someone's going to disagree with you. You have to do what feels right to you, and as long as you're doing a service to the community in a way that feels genuine, there's a lot of ambiguity in there, I think, to work with. But it's a hard thing to reconcile some ways.
When you can look on a new route as something for yourself, or you can look on it as a gift to the time community.
Yeah,
And that may affect how you place the bolts.
absolutely. There's some people out there developing 513s, 514s, and they're doing it for their 514 buddies. So it's bolted in a way that suits that level of community. It's not made for us.
Topic of developer dinner, I think that's pretty well.
yeah. Sorry.
3 hour conversation.
Yeah, no, you just
That's the brief.
poking it out a little bit.
Maybe I'll say one more thing about the developer. One thing that stood out to me when talking to all these folks is how everyone tended to develop on their own. And it's very like a 1-person or 2-person job, and they're just scrubbing. They put their headphones in, and they just scrub. Maybe it's something to get away from home, get away from their work, like their work or their other life. So to me, it felt like it was kind of lonely. So I was really interested in developing in this sense as a group, and like learning from Ryan was kind of the spearhead of this. Or you were our mentor, I guess. And it was very nice to
Scott was a
spearhead mentor. It was really nice to have that experience and learning as a group and just being there together, scrubbing and suffering and getting dirty and just working on a Crag. So it was. I feel like the experience or the way we approached it was a bit different than how it's normally done.
I think very bad.
Yeah, very different. Because you
From
also
my
developed a bunch of
Yeah.
Crags prior to this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't develop at the level of these guys do, but it's a solo venture. Because there's a select few people that have that psychological disconnect to just go spend all their free time laboring at what is kind of trivial at the end of the day, but that's kind of what it takes. And I think like mentally, it's a fun thing to do by yourself if you're that type of person. Right? This was an interesting idea that Scott had come up with to do it in a group dynamic, and that was a new thing for me, and it was actually like pretty fun.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Did you want to talk a little bit about the Crag itself? Like what
Oh, I don't want to talk at all, but I'm really good at keeping my mouth open. Right, so finding the Crag. The guys offered up nothing at the development dinner. Chris likes to keep those things close to his chest, I guess. I did have this particular Crag on my radar, I guess. How do you find one? You just spend time in the woods. In some places, you spend time on Google Earth. Back in Newfoundland, where I'm from, the guys they're on Google Earth, just be like, oh, that looks like it could be something. And then they might trek for 3 hours through the bush and find out that it is not. Again, it's just like it's this weird, thing. As soon as you find a gem, you're just like elated. But like Squamish has so much rock, and it's not all climbable. And some things are often not developed because it's not climbable or it's not safe to climb. Some things are left because it is more work than a solo venture is worth getting into. Sometimes they're left because they're probably not going to be 5 stars. And I mean, for the past who knows how many years, a lot of these guys are really good at finding that, like top 100 lines. They're really good at seeing it through the fog. And like that's how they like to spend their time, is like finding something like pristine, as it were. I saw this rock and was like, it's a lot of work for somebody to do on their own. But then when Scott was like, hey, let's throw a bunch of labor at it and teach some people how to do some stuff, it seemed like kind of the perfect piece. Does anyone know where this is? Or does anyone not know where this is? Okay, do you know where the courtyard is? The climbing wall courtyard. It's about 50 meters before that. So it's super accessible, super convenient if you are a family going to rock up to a crag right next to the road in a place that's already familiar and well established. That road already gets traffic. We didn't drive 25 minutes out Paradise Valley Road to give you an hour and a half slog through the forest to find a 3-star 5-6. That's not doing the community a service. That's not doing the club a service. I found that this one kind of met what I would have considered the parameters of it serves the community, it serves the club. They serve the club first. The club's putting the work in. They're putting the money in. Like they're putting their name on it. So I wanted to serve the club, which serves the community. It's accessible. It's going to get traffic. Rock and Squamish needs people climbing it, otherwise nature takes it back. We don't want to use chemicals that will keep it from nature, because eventually it would be nice if nature has it back when we're done with it. But until then, we need people on it. This is very accessible space, so it just seemed like the right spot to kind of try something pretty new, like to have a group Crag cleanup where we're teaching things that could go wrong. We're bringing people out there, like, yeah, it just seemed like a good spot to kind of experiment. Okay, perfect.
Sure. So, I'm Tyson, for anyone who doesn't know me. The club, via Scott, bought a whole bunch of good gear for it. Mostly just from Home Depot.
Gardening tools.
Basically just gardening tools.
I think Aaron called it extreme gardening.
Extreme gardening, yeah. I mean, first, safety, of course. So, old harnesses that you're not using for everyday climbing anymore because they get really dirty. Helmet, always necessary because stuff might be falling on you.
It definitely does fall.
Will be.
Yeah, for sure.
And then like we had our ropes set up, we had some protection for ropes going over certain edges, anchored to like trees off the top before we had bolts in for anchors. Ascending devices for going up and down were quite handy. And then for like actually cleaning the route, you can kind of see like the smaller tools going up to gradually larger tools. So we kind of started on this end, like taking shrubberies off, unrolling giant carpets of moss off some of the slabbier rock. And then gradually over time, as things got cleaner, we started using, scrub brushes, wire brushes, these little thingamabobs, I don't know what they're called.
What is that even for before we start putting it in the crack? I don't even know what that
Is
tool
it
is.
for grouting? Like taking out grout?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe. It's like a little.
Yeah, okay.
Is it one of those like 6-in-1 like paint tools?
No, it's not even that. Yeah.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, you might be right. It might be some sort of like grout tiler kind of tool. It's a long, thin scrap of metal on him.
I think it probably came from the like gardening section from Depot.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Gardening section.
Yeah, so basically cleaning the bigger stuff first and then fine detailing, like removing stuff from inside the cracks. Gloves are a good idea, otherwise your knuckles will be all bloody at the end of every day. We did have a first aid kit. That's good.
We didn't have to use it though.
We never had to use it. We had a nice, nice tote that everything went in, and I think on the first day a rock hit it and the zip broke.
Maybe that's why Julian didn't want to come to this thing.
Nice.
Called out on it. First day, busted it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We also had some big pry bars and stuff for like trundling rocks. We had a spade. There was one ledge on the route that just like had probably like a foot of dirt on it, and I spent a couple days just shoveling dirt off of the ledge. Yeah. Oh, and a leaf blower, that was really key for at the end when you're just trying to make things look pretty, get the dust off of it. And then of course all the bolting stuff, the drill, bolts, hangers, bits, a little squeeze thing to shoot the dust out of the hole. Whatever that's called. A turkey baster?
It's like a turkey, yeah. It's like a very specific turkey baster. The old school way is literally just a piece of tube.
Yeah.
But that just makes it. Let me get my face away from a hole where I'm blowing dust out.
Yeah.
We also did have to use a chainsaw at one point. If you want to talk about that
The big-
experience.
Oh, yeah. Who here has been to that Crag? More of your hands should be up. Talk about it next month. Yeah, so the way the Crag is like there's the rock kind of has this weird shape, and like right in the corner there was these two massive fallen trees. I guess they were growing, and then the rock kind of got brittle and kind of heaved away, but they still stayed attached to the rock face, but the whole tree was down and into the forest. Obviously, that had to go, but I don't know how to use a chainsaw, thankfully. So yeah, we solicited a friend of mine's help to like remove these two trees. Do we have before?
Oh, I was kind of look for some.
Nerds.
So
We can all gather around my phone later if I can find it. But yeah, the before photo of this, like it's you're just in the woods, like it's just like jungle, and these two massive trees were like down. We just need to chainsaw them and remove them before we could even safely enter the space. Realistically,
And if you go to the Crag now, the logs are there. They're kind of roll down into the bottom of the
some of
Crag.
them are rolled down. Some of them are just too big to move. Yeah. You can sit on a couple of them.
Oh yeah.
Was there a bunch of rocks that fell down when the tree
Oh yes.
went?
So it was like holding a pile of rocks.
Yeah, I think it's like the loose rock that had like gave it way, and they were kind of holding them back, so they couldn't root ball move. The rocks went with it.
Was the path already there to get to the Crag and then the one that goes up on the left side?
Sorry, say again.
The trail?
Like to the base of the crag.
Yeah, to the base of the crag, and then if you go on the left side, there is another path.
Yeah, it kind of looked like someone had camped there in the past, and it was because it's pretty flat at the base, or before you actually get to the crag, and there was a fire ring there when we first got there.
Yeah, because right next to it, there's a little drive-in there. A lot of people kind of car camp there, and it's kind of overflow from that in that kind of first entrance area.
Yeah, but there's nothing else to the left of that.
Well, the top rope access trail was put in by us.
Yeah.
That was
At the base
not
of the crag.
There's another piece of rock just over there as well, but it doesn't serve fun climbing.
Yeah.
What level of like safeguards when you're using like snipping tools and saws? Like, do you add redundancy in terms of ropes, or like what do you do so you don't saw yourself off?
Great question. Don't put the saw anywhere near the rope.
Yeah.
Don't do what I do on a regular basis, whereas when you trundle a rock, if all of your extra ropes hanging below you, that rock will come in contact with the length of the rope. You won't be removed from it, but it may core shot your rope further down, which is gonna ruin it. But yeah, like it is kind of tricky having sharp objects when you're on a rope, or at least mentally. It's surprisingly not that hard to keep those things away from your rope. Lots of times the bigger issue is that like what you're removing then becomes a projectile for any of your rope that's like, lots of times the extra ropes just bundled up and hanging below you. Everything you remove goes directly below you where your rope is. So sometimes it's just about kind of keeping that stuff out of the way. Otherwise just keep your rope away from sharp objects.
And we just made sure that no one was below us when we were cleaning too.
Yeah, nobody else is going.
Yeah. We had a couple of times people coming up to the base of the crag as we were cleaning.
Thinking it was a courtyard.
No, we're cleaning. Go away.
Back 6 months from now.
Yeah. You have a question, Ben?
Yeah, that question, sorry, what you just said was kind of related to my question. So do you have like signs up, like kind of telling people you're developing the crag?
Kind of a good idea, but
Yeah, I have in the past. I feel like the topic came up for this particular spot, but I think it's not on an active path. Like unless, it was kind of, we were in the middle of the process where like, oh, people are coming in here because they're thinking this is the crag that's just down the
it was
way.
very obvious when people were walking in.
Yeah.
It's a pretty long walk
Yeah.
in. You can hear the cars when they park.
Yeah, like we see that they're
and
coming.
Stop.
Generally speaking though, like when we've done crag cleanups with the club, we would often put up signs. Especially because like we're at an active crag, people are coming, so if it's in the bluffs, we often put up signage. I guess it was a conscious effort or conscious decision not to put them up here because we were like, there was very little chance of anyone being out there that wasn't us or without our knowledge because we could see everybody coming. But if it was somewhere, like if we were extending an existing crag or you're doing anything in the bluffs, that kind of stuff, you would have to put up a sign because, caution tape, something, just let people know.
The bulk of the clean was done in the winter as well, so there wasn't a lot of people going out there.
Sure. Yeah, by the time people came through, we were like bolting.
Most are bolting.
Yeah. So I kind of put together a list of what we did for our extreme gardening. So first thing was we made a path for ourselves to make sure that we can access the base of the crag comfortably. We didn't manicure it to the way it looks now. Actually, Helen and Brendan did a lot of good work for us at our last cleanup to clean up the path. We made sure that we could get in, and then we tried to find a route to the top. So that was one of the first things that we did, and then just flag it on the way up. We did a general cleanup of the base, which we didn't really need to do right away because we knew that we would trundle everything to the bottom. But
Yeah, there's a big
Yeah.
chalice field down there.
Yeah. We tried our best to not get rid of any trees that didn't need to be taken down. We had one, or maybe there were 2 trees that unfortunately got toppled over because a boulder fell on it. Yeah, we didn't intend that, but when you go to the crag, the left side, there's a big boulder that's kind of close to the start of it. That was unintentional. It fell.
If you look at the coloring of the rock, you can see where it was. It was quite large, and it created some really cool climbing features when it existed. But it didn't take very much movement with the crowbar to hear that it had to go. And you don't get to control a rock that size where it lands, and the trees were in its way.
One of the more fun things that we did was kind of create these steps here to get in, and that was the inspiration for the name of the Crag, the Grotto. And there's a fallen tree that has moss all over it. When you come in, you kind of have to duck under. And I'm like, oh, this would be cool to step underneath and kind of emerge into the grotto. So yeah, we put in some steps there and made it nice and accessible for people to come up.
It's probably the coolest entrance to the Crag.
I think so.
Quite a concept.
So we got pretty dirty. Like you can tell, I don't know how much shows up, but we're pretty much caked in mud. A lot of the times we did this when it was drizzling a little bit, because there's nothing else to do. So why not scrub, right? And it also kind of made it a little bit easier to clean, because then things would kind of wash out as you're cleaning it, and yeah. We get pretty dirty.
Old ropes, old grease, old clothes.
Yeah.
Don't bring anything that you love.
Shifting it,
Here's a video of Ryan trying
but
to
it is shifting. Oh boy.
Oh, wow. You can see his
Yep.
tail coming down there.
Oh, this is the one few times I'm managing it appropriately and not having it crash.
Yoo-hoo!
Fun
Jesus.
actually. I
It
enjoy
is.
that.
There's a little bit of guilt every time I do it, but then like mostly joy. And the higher up, the bigger the rock, the more the joy.
I unfortunately wasn't able to trundle a lot because I feel like I'm too light, so I would jump on it and it would just move just a very little bit. So
That one was like, yeah, that one was tricky because it was like kind of locked in.
yeah, it was like wedged in a little bit. And then after we kind of scrubbed everything, we all went to the base, kind of looked up at the rock and picked some roots that we thought might go. From there, we scrubbed those roots, assuming that it would go. Well, we tried, and then bolt some anchors above that. So this is a picture of the first anchor that you guys bolted.
What ACC rule is one of us breaking? If Julian was here, I would ask Julian, hey Julian, what color is your helmet? He wouldn't say black.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that. Yeah.
I figured as the lead, it's my responsibility to keep his
Yeah, so once we had the anchors up, we set up a top rope and worked some moves to determine if it actually went, and then determine the best bolting location. So how I went through this, and I think everyone's process was a little bit different. I'm 5 feet tall, so oftentimes I find that bolts are really high to reach. So I tried to make sure that I wasn't reaching at any point to clip a bolt. So that's the left side of the Crag, 5'7". The other side, I don't know what that is. I haven't actually tried them, so I don't know.
I want to find roots you both.
So earlier when I said there's no rules to developing, there is a general rule. At least white men who don't want to be part of the patriarchy, because my partner Erica calls it all patriarchy bolting, because bolts are always up here where it's convenient for me, my long reach, but short people can't get there. The general rule I've been taught and usually teach is the elbow. Like if I can't touch it with my elbow, it's probably too high for somebody. yeah, like and within
I like
reason,
that.
of course. But.
Yeah, so we made sure that we were in comfortable stances and then just put a little tick mark and tried to work that a couple times, see if that was comfortable, kept going up, did another tick mark, and then if it went, I think for almost all the routes we had a second person do that climb
This
to
was
make sure that that was still good.
yeah. This is a benefit of the group dynamic. Again, solo venturing is you just bolt things however you think is great, and then be damned to everybody else. They just have to follow suit. But here we could be like, well, this is how I think it should be bolted. Okay, you get on top rope, you try it out. You know, it's like, oh, I think you didn't notice this edge here. Like, hey, if we hang a quick draw off of this, it's going to be sitting over a lip, or you know, it's like it's easy to miss stuff. You're trying to look at so many different things. You're thinking about your body position. You're thinking about clipping stance. You're thinking about all the rules of like sharp edges and rocks, and like, well, if I clip it there, but I'm climbing here and I fall there, like, where am I gonna go? Like, it can be a lot, right?
Where's the second gonna go?
Yeah, so having a second person go fresh with already something based off of, which is what you kind of decided where you were at them, it gives, usually something gets moved because, you know, you missed something. Handle that.
I don't know if you guys are asking for this question, but why are all the first bolts so high?
Because yeah, like that's again, like this is sometimes it's tricky.
To find something?
If it were any lower and you were to fall, the bolt wouldn't do anything for you.
Oh, that's
Is usually the short answer to why there are high first bolts.
Yeah.
And that was particularly important for the left side of the Crag because of that boulder that fell down.
Yeah.
So we didn't want anyone really clipping there and potentially falling on that first bolt. So
That's
it's
not
too low.
Yeah, it's often like the harder climbs will often get the first high bolt because it ends up being like, oh, the first move is like a 10A, 10B, or so on. Like if it's a really hard move off the ground, you want to be protected. If you're climbing a 5-7 and it's a really easy start, the likelihood of a fall on that first bolt might not really be there, or like you can get to that first bolt safely
It's getting
through the
Even if
terrain.
you're short.
Even if you're short, yeah. So it's just, it usually just comes down to
it's
how
getting
hard is
second
that
shot.
move off the ground? What's the likelihood of a fall before clipping that first bolt? If I clip that first bolt and fall, is that bolt keeping me from the ground?
Also, if you're climbing to the second bolt, you're gonna eject before you.
That is often why the second bolt ideally is not too far from the first one
Yeah.
because you don't want that deck. Right? But again, so thinking of all those things, it's easy to miss something.
And stick kept playing her friend.
Yeah, I'm very thoughtful now that I think about it because I was at the playground and I fell at the second bolt during the like class and my teacher was like so shocked and I was like, oh okay, maybe she uses
Yeah.
like
Yeah, and most topos and guidebooks and stuff will often kind of tell you like ahead of time, like it's, I think we recommend it for pretty much the whole Crag.
I went about 15 years without a stick clip and then bought one for this Crag.
You could have borrowed one, I think. Maybe the club should buy one and just like tie it to a tree with like a 50-meter tether. Or just like get a stick and just like bash something on.
The club does have a stick though. And then from there, we did our first, after we bolted everything, we did our first ascent and had a photo shoot on that day. So we had some photographers come in and just take pictures of us while doing the first ascent. It was really fun.
Again, not something you normally do with a big group, which is like really fun to kind of just bang out seven routes, just like in an afternoon, like for the first time ever.
How did you decide who gets to first ascent?
Well, yeah, so we all kind of picked a route that we wanted to focus on. Like when we got there, like this is like speaking to me. You're like, oh, I'm really stoked on being in that spot. So some of us kind of like had a route that we were working a bit more like thoroughly than the other spots. Some of us weren't always there every day. I know Shannon was kind of like coming and going, so that she didn't really have like a dedicated line she was working on. So when the time came, if you were working that line most of the time, you probably wanted it yourself. And we just kind of usually just let somebody, like, again, it's a group thing. Like, the club's name is on most of this stuff anyway. And
I also didn't think, when I was there, I scrubbed more on the right side, and I didn't think I could versus ascendant. So I picked the left side. I think this is manageable for me.
Is there after time like a skill you develop in judging the appearance of a rock? As in, okay, this. I mean, I guess it's a bit easier to tell if it's a beginner-friendly rock, but then if you choose a line, do you know it will work right away? Or is it sometimes a bit of a hit or miss, and you start cleaning and removing stuff, and then you find out that it's going to be really hard?
It's
Well,
like
there's one
advanced.
line that Tyson and I tried, and it doesn't
We actually like worked on it for quite a
it
while,
might,
and then decided it was a bit
not worth
too
Yeah.
try.
Someone still could in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it seems pretty hard.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
Open
I-
project.
Yeah, to the left.
Yeah.
Like kind of going.
Right up the gully that the
Well-
trees came down from.
Where the two trees were, yeah.
Yeah.
It's advanced root reading. So some people are really good at looking at a clean rock and looking at a line and being able to tell you what the grade is, like, of the root without looking at the information. Some people can look at a rock that doesn't have any root and be able to read it and tell you what the grade is before they climb it. Some people can do that when there's moss and trees growing in it, which I feel like is X-ray vision. But there is sometimes, like the roots on the left side of that crag, we kind of just went fishing at that point. We're like, okay, we have these other established lines. Like, there could be something underneath this blanket of moss. There's really only one way to truly know if there's anything in there is to like unearth it. Sometimes you unearth stuff and you don't find enough. Sometimes you find enough holds or moves where you're like, oh, that could be something in here, but you're not sure about the grade until you really start getting into the nuts and bolts of it. But yeah, I think that is just an acquired skill over time, being able to like see something and know whether or not it can go, and probably another level beyond that to be able to like kind of pick the grade like out of the air, which I can't do it. Yeah, I'm not there. Yeah, sometimes it just leads to a lot of scrubbing and yielding nothing. We all want to clean a top 100 5.9. Sometimes it's a 3-star 5.6.
Which is what happened.
7 times.
Yeah, and then from there we made a topo. So we got a nice drone shot by Pile King. The day that we had our photo shoot, he brought his drone. I don't know if you know this, or did you tell me this?
I don't know. I'm excited to hear the story myself.
He brought his drone, and he realized that he didn't download the app for his drone to control it, and there's no service up there.
Okay.
So he didn't tell any of us because he was too embarrassed to download it, so he came back another day.
Oh,
yeah.
That's very clever.
But yeah, there's no service up there. Yeah, so for those who haven't been there before, there are 7 routes. I'm just gonna show you the topo
What's the
here.
theme, Shannon? Yeah.
Can anyone guess based on these names, or if you have read the topo?
Is it Crab Brothers?
What about?
Part of it, yeah. It's 90s TV shows. So Timmy and Tommy,
Yeah,
Tommy
kids.
Tibble. Yeah, kids. Yeah, it's from Arthur, kids animated show, which I love. Sometimes I still watch it once in a while. The Snuffleupagus from Sesame Street, right? Yeah.
Snuffleupagus?
Yeah. And then there's Zabumafu from the Crag Brothers. I'll Take Care of You, Birdie from Nanalan. And then Henry is my co-pilot. And A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Mr. Rogers. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the Crag. That's our presentation.
Questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, complaints, compliments. Let's start at the end. Compliments.
It's not compliments, more of a question, but also a compliment. Actually, maybe not, but. Who decided on the grades of the Crag?
The Rock did.
The Rock. But who? Somebody.
Again, collective. Everything's a collective effort.
This probably did it first, and then there was
We
someone
talked
did it
about
after.
that.
And
Yeah.
I think this is this, and yeah.
Ultimately, the first ascensionist names it and grades it. And then for ad infinitum until death controls the outcome of that route.
Yeah, so don't add any extra bolts.
Yeah.
Or chop the anchors.
Yeah, there's again ethos. We're not here to discuss all that. Yeah, so generally it's the first ascensionist names it and grades it, and that just comes again from experience, being able this feels to be in the grade that I know 5.9 to be, but it's really great crowdsourcing because you can get everyone to climb it at different levels. I find myself, like in Squamish, a lot of these guys absolutely crush, and then they'll come and be like, yeah, that's a 5.9. And you're like, this is a sandbag 5.9. This is the hardest 5.9 I've ever done in my life. Peter Croft really needs to adjust his grades. But and some, I'm sure Chris and Aaron probably also had friends climb their routes maybe before they take them out. I also do on my recreational climbing. I bring friends. Like, hey, give me your opinion. I'm calling it this unless you really think otherwise. So having all of us, we at least wanted a second opinion on every route. A lot of us climb at different levels as well, which is really helpful because really strong climbers are going to be better at grading harder climbs. I don't develop above 10D because I'm not really good at grading that or climbing it. So it's just really good to get kind of a lot of opinions, but it does ultimately come down to the person who climbed it first gets to kind of dictate those parameters, but it's within reason.
So I noticed on the right side of the crag when I was climbing it that it was a bit of a Jenga tower of kind of rocks, and maybe for my own peace of mind and maybe others, what do you do to kind of because when I was climbing I was like, well, I don't know if I want to pull on this, right? It looks
kind of the big rock that has the tree stump kind of in it, and there's a big crack behind it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how do you determine do you yank on it a bunch? You get a crowbar on it? What do you do to?
Yeah, I mean a lot of it is just you throw as much you can at it, and if it doesn't budge, it's usually a safe bet. If you throw anything at it and it moves, it's got to go. It's if it moves at all, it's going to move. Some things you're like. That particular one, I got a crowbar in there, and I bent the crowbar. I've seen people bring bottle jacks.
It's a bit much.
Yeah, I feel like if you get ball jacking somewhere, you can probably create fractures that will move rock. But yeah, if I'm gonna get up there and hurt my back with a 4-foot crowbar, trying to move it and it doesn't budge, it's a safe bet that it's not gonna go anywhere, at least for some time. But the reality is we all see in Squamish, rock moves. Water gets in there, freezes, the heat gets in there and expands. It's 5 years from now, 20 years from now, Craig could look different. Right? All those rocks down bottom were a part of the face at one point. So, but right now, everything that's there is to the best of our abilities, safe for public use. Did anyone see the rebar that I stuck in the rock to keep it from moving?
It's what?
It's right.
Do you want to get feedback or like if you see something moving, rocks moving or stuff, do you want us to leave feedback, and if yes, where?
I bet you, yeah, I mean, you should always let somebody know if something's unsafe at any crag. Especially the club. Like, you can let anyone you know at the club know. Does anyone not know what Mountain Project is? It's like the app we all use. Feedback on there always gets back to somebody. Usually to the person who put it up on Mountain Project, which I guess at this point is me. Yeah, like if bolts are loose, if rocks are loose, or whatever. If you're an active member of the club, just getting it back to the club is helpful because the club will kind of take this crag on like as their own. I'm assuming. But the beauty of Squamish as well, unlike a lot of places, having the Squamish Access Society, we're kind of fortunate where if bolts are loose, anchors are rusty, the crag becomes unsafe, like we often can let them know and then they'll determine the course of action moving forward, which is just like a service that's just like very fortunate for us to have. But generally, if you see anything anywhere in climbing, you should always let someone know, even if it is just the internet, because at least then somewhere it's gonna get back to the person who needs to know that, and the changes can be made. But yeah, if you see anything, let us know, please. And if you like or hate the climbs, like
I was gonna say.
I'm not don't just shower us with praise. If you don't like the climb, put it on Mountain Project. Grade it or star it, review it the way you would anything else, so that information can get to people, even if it's the public. Maybe we don't change the grade of the route because we think you're wrong, but 200 people climb it and everyone agrees that that's a sandbag, the grade. The public at least now knows, right? Like all of this is like crowdsourced information. It's the first thing I do whenever I go out on new crags is I check people's opinions. I don't just read the topo. The topo is kind of biased, right? So the guidebook's pretty biased, but if you read the Mountain Project reviews, there's some biased opinions, but usually it's kind of like a community-based opinions. So, yeah, feedback.
So when Ian and I climbed there, it was shortly after a rainfall, and your crag is the only one that's dry in that entire area, because everybody else who checked out courtyard, playground, they all came to your crag.
I don't know, I was pretty wet. What were
Which routes you're climbing on that? Yeah, you know that little rock trail that goes in there, that floods, a lot of water moves through that
We were
neighborhood.
throwing so many rocks in there just to make sure there was a path.
Yeah, but if it's flooded, you're probably not climbing. If you are.
So if we were to estimate how many man hours we have put into this,
Don't ask that.
How many people hours?
is that
Yeah, patriarchy bolter over here. Oh my god, I can't even. So we probably would have went for 3 or 4 hours at a time.
At least 10 times.
I'd say minimum. Yeah. I would go probably, if you're talking about cleaning and bolting and climbing, working on the routes, probably closer to 20. You're looking at 5 people, 4 hours a time, times 20. Who's got the fast math? That number plus 10% for incorrect information, and then you're probably somewhere in the ballpark of how much time to spend.
So it was a year and a half.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't need to be, but who's got that kind of time? There's so many better things to do in Squamish. I don't know how things get developed in this town. It's amazing. There's so many cool things to do, but we decided to do this. You're welcome.
Oh, did you guys have a good time?
Had a great time.
Well, that's what matters.
Yeah, it's a very unique experience, I think, to have a club that supports such a silly venture for friends to go into the forest and just be wild. And like to then create something from that the community can now use. Like
That's very cool.
more things of making Squamish way too fortunate as a place to live.
Was it the first time that the club made something like this?
I think it's the first time the club's like allowed to. Like there's
allowed. Yeah, so this was the first like new liberating it really from the moss for the first time and doing, first bolts and stuff like that. So prior to that, there was, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 sessions of like retro scrubbing.
More than that.
Ish. So it was, I think we did playground / courtyard, gave that a retro scrub. Do you know 2nd Ave in the Smoke Bluffs? So that's like one of the only like sport climbing areas in the Smoke Bluffs. So it's like lower angle rock, and then there's a bunch of like larger trees quite close to it, so it kind of gets like percolated on with tree debris.
So it is Lumberland?
Lumberland, yep, Lumberland.
Split asunder.
Split asunder.
Big projects.
Yeah, there's also Commonwealth in Murrin. So this is the first like new rock climbing terrain, but there are a few other crags that it was sort of like the club will buy a whole bunch of pizzas and get ropes and stuff like that, so that like the incentive and materials are available, and then it's just kind of like all hands on deck with some guidance and supervision and stuff, and then kind of like mass scrub over the span of the day.
It's amazing what you can do with enough people.
Will you guys clean stuff that are already there, but they just haven't been cleaned for years?
Yeah,
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. So mostly that's what we've done historically. So if, as Ryan was alluding to earlier, rocks in Squamish, being in a coastal rainforest, it'll get like mossed over, and the cracks will get full of like debris and mud in a small number of years. And so what's more is if it's kind of like a little bit dingy, then people don't want to climb that because there's lots of other like 5-star climbs not very far away. And then once that happens, and there's no traffic on it, it quickly gets rendered into an unclimbable state until somebody puts a bunch of labor to like, get the muck off of it again. So the club's done that like half a dozen-ish times.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened with Split Asunder in the Smoke Bluffs. That was a lost Crag. When me and Scott kind of first found that spot, it was unclear that we thought we found new rock. We were like, there's no way the Smoke Bluffs has been climbed, and as you got closer, like, oh, there's bolts. But then, like, the closer you get, you're like, oh, there's anchors here for cracks that you can't even see. Like, there was so much. There was moss so thick that bolts were hidden. So that was a big undertaking. Before that, it was like, let's crags that people use, but not that frequently. This was a crag from 2009 that hasn't seen. The old Kevin McLean guidebook had deemed it an unclimbable crag. Whatever it said, there was no information. It's like, oh, this exists, this is where it is. That's all I'm giving you because that's all there is. I had to do some deep diving to find like hand-drawn topos of like just like loose information. So that was the first time the club got into like unearthing like a ancient artifact of 2009's not really that ancient, I guess.
2009 artifact.
But yeah, that was kind of cool. Just be like, oh, like the active climbing community has never climbed here, but it's been climbed. So that was kind of cool to like find.
guys gonna make another event like that? Quite the Crag development.
Yeah. So yes. So you
None
know,
of these answers are short. You could leave it.
You know, Alpine Club and Squamish here, it's all volunteer, right? So a lot of the membership fees will go to I want to get Aaron Christensen a beer while he tells us about his whiskey.
Yeah, right.
And then it's like, yo, $20 there. But then otherwise it's like very, very volunteer driven. And so, you know, this project was the result of maybe about 6 pretty active volunteers to get the real work done. And I was sort of like doing like a little bit of inception, project management type stuff, sourcing the tools.
All those tools are part of club donations.
Yes. Yeah. So it's currently I'm chipping away at a mountaineering course. It's kind of my new club project. And so in terms of the next time this is gonna come around, a lot of the time these projects come to fruition as people advocate for them. So for example, if I'm like, yo, who wants to be a part of round 2? You know, tons of hands. And it's like, oh, nice. Okay, who wants to organize a developer dinner? And there's hands. It's like, ooh, developer dinner. And it's like, okay, who wants to update our cache of equipment for doing this? And then it's like, okay, more hands, boom. And then, lots of hands make for easy work. Whereas if it's just me and one other guy, and the guy's like, I kind of want to do this, but not really, it's mostly going to be you. And it's like, I think maybe not this year, maybe next year we'll get back to that one. Thanks for the good idea.
Yeah, I just want all the glamour of VFAs,
It's like, thanks, dude, bro. I'll put it in queue. I'll get to it eventually. Whereas it's much different if tons of people are like, hooray! Then it's a lot easier to put those things together. So nothing on the schedule, but if this is kind of your jam, get in cahoots and we'll identify the components of the project and project management.
I would say I am Crag curious.
Yes, nice.
Yes.
It is it's a loose dedication. It takes a lot of work, and with a group, it takes organization. When I go out to scrub, it's just I got 3 hours. I'm gonna do it now. I'll just go. Right? But you can't do that with club events. You can't do that to your 4 other friends that are scrubbing with you, right? So, and once you get into it, you want to be kind of into it. It took us 2 years, and I felt like a year and a half, and I thought we were pretty dedicated. But then summer comes around, you're like, okay, well, that happened. Oh, it's a rainy day. It's gonna be raining in 2 weeks. You guys want to try and get together? It's it takes a lot of work. And outside of just the manual labor, it's just putting that time away and committing it to something. And, you can't just bail all the time because your friends are relying on you, right? It's a thing that you're trying to create together. So it is a commitment, but it's also it's the amount of commitment that you as a group are willing to put into it. We agreed upon, I think initially, once every 3 weeks, a Sunday, we're gonna pick those ahead of time so that we have that plan for the next 3 months, every 3rd Sunday, so that we could all organize around that. And then as it was getting closer, every 2nd Sunday, we're getting close to trying to get some bolts in. We were getting stoked on it. And then the summer came, and then it was 6 months of doing nothing. And then the fall started coming around, and we started organizing again. So it's very self-driven club activity. It wasn't coming up on Group's Place where you can sign in and get the emails. It's very club supported, but member driven.
So yes, if anyone here is Craig curious and wants to, has even a rock in mind that you walk through the forest and you have some inspiration, maybe this is it. Maybe we can add them to the group chat we already have, you can talk to one of us, and then we can add you, and then you can kind of throw out what you're interested in, what you want to do, and then if you want to spearhead it, that would be great, because I don't think anyone that did it or worked on this Crag has the time right now to spearhead anything. But if you are, that would be awesome, and we can help support you in whatever way.
I think that was the consensus for us. Was like I will happily give information and insight and assistance.
But spearheading it.
But spearheading, I got my own projects, not even Crag development that I've been neglecting furiously that I need to get to. But I mean, everyone's got that excuse, right? But I'll be happy to help in any way that I can. But it would like this sort of, like club event is very kind of group driven.
So just put it out there for all those that are Crag curious. Get in touch. I will buy you all beers and pizzas, and we'll sort of sit down and talk about it. And if Crag develops out of it, that's lovely. If Crag does not develop out of it, then it's great to hang out with people. And
We'll try again next Friday,
Yeah, try
and
next
every
Friday.
Friday until.
Yeah. Here's on the club.
Well, thanks for coming to our little
That's all presentation.
Thank you.
Good
job, guys.
So we got a room until 8 o'clock, so you guys can, if you want to hang around and chat, you can stay until 8. Yeah, 15 more minutes. Also plug that we'll have John Baldwin coming next month, so stay tuned. We'll have an event up. It's the 10th.
What?
Yeah.
10th of June?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Coming up. Pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's.